On behalf of the Pathfinder Group and UBank, we're delighted to welcome you to the Pakistan Breakfast, our annual event at Davos. I would like to wish a warm welcome to all of the panel members who I will introduce, but obviously particularly our chief guest, Senator Shahir Rahman, Federal Minister of Climate Change in Pakistan, a critical topic of discussion not just in Pakistan but the world over. And I would like to start by letting Mirek say a few words on behalf of the World Economic Forum.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, first I'd like to thank our host, Ikram Segal, for convening this distinguished gathering year after year. I'm deeply proud of our partnership with the Pathfinder Group, Ikram, and the work that you do to strengthen the ties between Pakistan and the Forum, but also between Pakistan and the world. The global crises of the past year have particularly affected Pakistan. Inflation, the fallout of the war in Ukraine, and unprecedented summer floods have conspired to slow Pakistan's post-COVID economic recovery. However, there have been considerable efforts by the government to secure funding for post-flood reconstruction, including through a UN conference in Geneva just last week. And Pakistan has emerged as a global champion for climate change loss and damage fund, to help countries like Pakistan that are disproportionately affected by our changing climate. The Forum is committed to helping Pakistan showcase its achievements and deliver impact for its people. We have done this by bringing together leaders from business, government, international organizations, and civil society for over 50 years. The Edison Alliance is improving 1 billion lives through digital solutions in health, finance, and education. And we are honored that Pathfinder Group, through the Asan Mobile Scheme, is now part of the alliance. And we look forward to working with them and other stakeholders in making Pakistan one of the lighthouse countries for financial inclusion. Through Pakistan's Ministry of Climate Change, we also work together to reduce plastic waste as part of the Forum's Global Plastics Action Partnership. And we're working on an initiative with the Pakistan Board of Investment and the Saudi-based Digital Cooperation Organization to launch a digital FDI project in Pakistan. We're deeply grateful to the Pakistani business community and also to the government for being such a great partner. We very much look forward to working together to make the most of the opportunities that are open to Pakistan. I wish you a fruitful week here in Davos. Thank you.
My next guest is Ross Perot Jr. He received the Gold Medal of Award for Excellence from Ronald Reagan in the 1980s as well. He's been intimately connected with the Fort Worth Alliance network and the airport and the inland ports and so forth. The ties between him and my father, Ikram Segal, run very deep. They're both aviation pilots. My father obviously served the Pakistan, Army as an aviation pilot, and they obviously grew very fond of each other. As part of that, they flew helicopters together as well, and I think that bond has only grown deeper. So without much further ado, Mr. Perot.
Thank you for this honor to come to your breakfast. You told me 15 years I've been here at this breakfast, so it's been, I do feel like family, and you and I have done a lot together in the world. And we are part of the East-West Institute, and so for years we organized the back channel Track 2 work around the world, and we had really good success. And I think, Ikram, we need a little Track 2 right now in the world. We need to help glue our world back together again. I read an article in the Financial Times that says that it was the first time in human history money has been this low. And so when you have that much cheap money floating around in our country, this year probably the rates will go up to 5 to 5.25. The markets will probably still be a little bit marginal for the first half of the year. Once the rates slow down, the markets will start to come back a little bit. Right now in our country, if you don't work, a family can pick up about $60,000 a year. And so that's that you're being paid not to work. And so those are the COVID entitlements that went in. We pull that out, and we should see the economy start to come back. The U.S.-Pakistan relationships need to get back to where they were. We need to strengthen those bridges together. Our countries are too important to each other. And our ties with the United States have been very deep, especially our military ties were deep for decades. And we need to rebuild those ties and continue that partnership. Because I think the more we get along, the closer our militaries are, and our militaries can resolve many problems backstage before they become a problem and actual open conflict between nations. And so those military ties are very important, and hope we can continue to do that. But thank you.
Our co-host next, Kabir, President and CEO of Microfinance Bank, UBank. We are very grateful for obviously you co-hosting this event with us. If you'd like to say a few words, Kabir.
I welcome you all here on behalf of Pathfinder Group and UBank. We are the co-hosts, as Zarar mentioned today. So I'll talk a bit about UBank and what we've done, and then I'll move to the Pakistani context as what is needed. So UBank is a microfinance bank, as Zarar mentioned. We are one of the 12 microfinance banks in Pakistan. We are the fastest growing. I take pride in saying teams have worked very hard for the last 7 years. We are the largest in terms of brick and mortar presence in the country and growing. As we are a mission-driven bank, what is closest to our heart is financial inclusion. And what we have learned over the years is that without social inclusion, there is no financial inclusion. Pakistan is a country of 220 million people, and 65% of the people in Pakistan are less than the age of 34. 100 million are around the age of 15 or below. So we have a very, very young budding population that needs education, training, nutrition, and so on and so forth. And I'll take liberty of talking a bit about the AMA account. We all know, I think, about mobile wallets all over the world. This is something which is increasing. In Pakistan, the State Bank took a very brave decision for taking out a branchless banking regulation, which was bank-led, unlike other parts of the world where it was telco-led. And with bank-led branchless banking, taking banking out of the brick and mortar to, say, a small superstore or on the street, literally, the real challenge is to give products to people where their income levels can actually increase. Payments is usually misconstrued for branchless banking. Payments is a fraction. That is to get things going. The real test will be if we are able to provide credit to the average Pakistani based on digital channels, based on income proxies, which is very hard in terms of management of risk, because that will require banks to put in their capital at risk the way they've never put that before. So the partnership between Pathfinder and UBank, I'll talk a bit about that, is that AMA accounts are telco agnostic and bank agnostic. I think that's the first one in the world. That's why I think we are being considered for a lighthouse country in terms of penetration in the market in this way. So the microfinance industry in Pakistan has been holding the delinquencies at less than 4% over the last 22 years. If I exclude the act of God like the COVID, the recent floods, or locusts, the repayment behavior is excellent. Why? Because the loans are used for productive purposes and are not consumed. And we've seen some very interesting, inspiring stories where people have come in, for a loan, say, of 50,000 rupees, and in the fourth cycle, fifth cycle, they're borrowing up to a million or 2 million rupees. So Pakistan is a great destination for investment. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a young population, and a huge tele-density, 170 million people hooked onto mobile phones, but less than 20% of banking penetration, and that's where we come in. So I welcome you all once again, and I'm open to discussions later in the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody, for your patience. I'd like to obviously now go to our chief guest, Federal Minister, Senator Sharee Rahman of climate change. She is the pivotal person in Pakistan today with what Pakistan is facing. The minister has been tireless in her efforts from going from forum to forum, from going to country to raise not just awareness but real funds for Pakistan. And in the recent Geneva conference that took place, your success was very apparent. You've received the highest civilian honor in Pakistan in prior years. Please, the floor is all yours.
Before I begin, I'd like to pay a small debt of gratitude to the Sehgal Group family and the Pathfinder Group, friends of Pathfinder, UBank, who's had a long say here today about inclusion, and I think it's very important. I live with that. My husband does the same business. And it is really, really gratifying to see every year, year after year, a Pakistani event with regularity. And to me, it becomes the hub of a great many opportunities for Pakistan. Now, I could discuss the century, but I think this decade is decisive for us. It's also a dangerous decade. Why I say this is because there's been very little realization. The world over, there's still denialists, and this is not endemic to Pakistan, about climate change as a reality or something that will actually inhibit your daily experiences. One day it will inhibit the way you take a shower. One day it will inhibit how a business faces challenges in making its investment portfolios roll out. It impacts the vulnerable disproportionately the world over. And in Pakistan, we saw women and children at the front line of this crisis. In every sense of the word, were the ground zero of climate change calamity in 2022. It was a real eye-opener. It was a record-breaking climate event of the century. The UN Secretary General visited, made a long journey to the heart of the flood-affected areas, and he was stunned because that's what the UN does. They go everywhere where crisis erupts. They try to bring the power and salve of multilateralism, especially the humanitarian relief crises that we are facing. So we are very grateful. Antonio Guterres has played a stellar role. He has been a personal advocate for Pakistan, and we cannot thank him enough. So here's the power of the UN manifesting itself for the moral imperative it brought. We are working very hard to ensure that there is better preparedness, there is adaptation on the ground. We have been focusing on, in climate terms, mitigation means we're doing that anyway because we need to reduce our import energy bills. Those are very high. We are importing wheat. This was a wheat exporting country. The Prime Minister called a cabinet meeting and said, listen, we need to reduce our import bill. And I said, very good, we need to reduce emissions anyway. So while we are on the path to renewables, particularly solarization and wind tariffs, we need to make better regulatory frameworks. So we have a very difficult task cut out. All those young people I see in the room who want to work on climate, I invite them to please come to Pakistan. I'll house you at the ministry. Young people are the future. And climate action, it's about including young people who understand the gravity, magnitude, and scale of what can be unleashed in the world. Now, somebody mentioned here acts of God. These are not acts of God. The pandemic was not an act of God, neither was the climate crisis. These are the outcome of prolonged anthropogenic activities. What that means in English is that these are man-made activities. So these are man-made crises. Even the pandemic. There was a conference on biodiversity in Montreal, a month ago, and it's called the biodiversity. Everybody knows that the species extinction is leading to zoonotic illnesses and diseases, returning old diseases that humanity thought they had dealt with. I mean, even Pakistan, seeing diphtheria, it was gone. And old diseases that everybody had dealt with are returning, and new ones are surfacing that the human race is grappling with with a future that is inherently becoming more and more unpredictable, not just for Pakistan, but for everyone. So managing unpredictability is essential for resilient economies, people, and countries. There is maximum overstretch, and I missed, out of fear of Ikram, I missed a risk advisory board meeting at the WEF this morning, which identified 10 risks to the world and for every country, and cost of living was the top of the risk. But I would actually, cost of living is a symptom of structural crises, and the structural crises hitting the planet, hitting the way you will experience your tomorrow and even today in many countries, is defined by all of us not taking climate action together, because it is not possible to solve climate issues alone. Why I say that is Pakistan is a less than 1% emitter. So if we go totally renewable tomorrow, which we should anyway, at one point we should, although oil and the bad old fossil fuels still carry base load in many countries, and coal is returning to the heart of Europe at the hint of a first shortage. And I won't say which countries, but It's happening. We are, silently not doing what we need to do. And by we, I don't mean Pakistan. Pakistan is hurtling towards, and we have to hurtle towards the recovery framework we created while we were in this emergency. This combined our glacial melt. We have the largest amount of glaciers outside the polar region. People may not know that. We also have, at the same time, in the same country, a delta region that is often in drought, which is right now inundated by water. So 1/3 of the country was inundated, and we had the glacial melt accelerate to 300 degrees this year because of global warming. Now, Pakistan is not causing the global warming at all. We are too small an emitter. And so if we go totally renewable tomorrow, totally green, that warming will still come to Pakistan. These are the geographies of vulnerability. While we are inundated, okay, by 2025 we face water scarcity. That's how climate extremes work. So this is a very serious poly-crisis we are facing. Why I say poly-crisis? Because there's a cost of living crisis. Inflation is high. Energy is in short supply. And obviously energy still power everyone's economies, homes, phones, everything. So these are moments of egregious crisis for the world leadership. You need to form platforms that ensure responses to scale. People bring little projects. Some donors bring projects, and they tick them off. And I said, it's doing nothing for me. It's ticking your box, but it's not really giving me the scale I need for transformation on the ground. And I asked the World Economic Forum to build that platform. You have the convening power, you have the heft, you have the money, and in this arc of privilege where we sit and talk about scale solutions, people have to come through for each other, for a joint future, for us to find common purpose on saving what is left of the planet. Why are you even bothering to go to war, I say, when there will be nothing to fight over after a while? So these are fundamental shifts I'm talking about. They're existential. Their impacts have come to Pakistan. If we don't even think or talk about why, then we are derelict in our duties and responsibilities. The good news is we still have the largest irrigation, man-made irrigation system in the world intact, but that's in the plains of the Punjab. There's hope wherever there's darkness. That is human nature. We innovate, we put our shoulders to the wheel, and we cannot give up. In the challenges, must we find opportunity. And that opportunity is to rebuild better. Not just a bumper sticker, build back better, but actually do it with coherent plans that strategically intervene through the provinces, and we're setting up a recovery unit that the federal government will manage because the donors also come through us. So that is how we are working this. We are rebuilding with a hope towards making sure that the next crisis doesn't occur while we're rebuilding. But it will. It will. This is nature's war now, back on us. And Pakistan is no match for nature's war. We have been home next door for 20 years to the longest war in history, to over 40 countries coming in there. Wali Nasser knows that. I was working with him in the United States when this was going on. For 20 years, this war went on. 43 countries, the entire NATO alliance, a coalition of that willing came in. And, well, we all know where that went. We lost 80,000 people. We lost an entire generation of soldiers, of civilians, of children, of women that were victims of terrorism. We've taken the brunt of this war next door. And we are in no position we do not want to take on another war. This is what I'm saying. What went on in Pakistan will not stay in Pakistan. One ecosystem collapses, the next starts collapsing very soon. That is the way nature is, that is the way biodiversity is, that is the way climate is. They are all connected. We have built silos, man-made silos in the world, and we've extracted from the earth without giving back. Now, we are facing a crisis of addiction to consumerism and obviously high use of energy and water. That's what's going on in the world today, and I believe that's the first risk everyone faces. Thank you very much.
I think Pakistan needs to find a way to build relations economically with the rest of the world. It has to become relevant to the larger economic issues. Its relationship with the United States has to be economic. If there is no security concern, then why would people pay attention to Pakistan and a country of 200 plus million with the resources it has to do that. It's easy to say it's the job of the government, but I actually don't think so. I think it's the job of Pakistani private sector. The one big asset Pakistan has, its vibrant private sector and large middle class, and I think above and beyond all of the crises, it's important for it to find a way to play the same kind of economic role that many other similarly sized countries, the one next door to Pakistan, for instance.
This is a world actually divided in many ways. The polarities are at home as well as globally. I think it's going into conflict now. The otherization of powers and states and creation of blocks is something that smaller countries, developing countries, are now being forced to navigate. So Pakistan's diplomacy has been quite deft, and we have deepened and renewed our ties with the United States after a bit of an interregnum, while also banking and trying to capitalize on the opportunity offered by China in the CPEC momentum. The private sector wants predictability for its contractual frameworks. That's a very basic need that all businesses want. So I think that's one of the ways forward. And internationally, I would think that global leaders, the big countries, the rich countries, where wealth has been generated since the Industrial Revolution, they need to speak to this crisis of polarities that is now transforming the world. Transformations bring either opportunities or they deepen existing challenges. And right now, we see the deepening, the decoupling of economies, the protectionism. See The Economist this week. See the big editorial. It's anti-globalization. These are new challenges for joint platforms, but we see walls coming up. So I think there the responsibility must lie with the empowered.
My name is Zubair Tufail from Karachi. My question is to the minister that Pakistan has seen the worst floods in the history of Pakistan. 33 million people were affected. And still the federal government has done a great job with support of United Nations, and the Secretary General was kind to come all over Pakistan. And then you had the recent conference in Geneva where you raised a big amount of funds, which is close to about $10 billion. Now, my question is that still a big number of people are affected, especially in the province of Sindh.
Yes.
They are displaced and still water is there. So how do you foresee that, how long it will take the water to go out and when these people will be settled back into their villages? Thank you.
We had those indices working. Those were cross-referenced, and we have moved that much money to the front line. It is still not enough. You're quite right. Many of those lakes will never be drained. So we're trying very hard for livelihoods and shelters to be built so that people now move away. But human nature is such, they want to live next to the riverbed where they are vulnerable. And you can't police migrations, inland migrations. So it's quite a challenge. People just wandering back with their livestock. So we can do a lot. Businesses can actually move mountains. They do in Pakistan. They did in 2010. They're even doing it now. But capacity to service 33 million, that's 3 countries, medium-sized countries. Surely Pakistan needs your help.
I have one question and one ask. I have been into different sessions speaking on digital transformation, technologies, from the global perspective also. And the perspective from the Pakistan is not there. You are doing amazing job. Minister Hina is doing amazing job. But I think we really need to see what government can do and make this a consistent effort at Davos. The question that I want to ask is that we have seen a lot of money has been promised to Pakistan around these crises. How much this will be translated into an action?
Look, we can't add this on to public expenditure. This is not the time. But I do feel that there needs to be far more active representation from businesses, from civil society, that can headline conversations that are extremely relevant to Pakistan and redefine some of our deficit in the voices that come up here. It becomes a very in-house conversation, I've noticed, where big businesses in cold climates are talking to each other and basically at the audience. So I had to interrupt that last night. I said, look, I'll disrupt this conversation because it's just, I have a reality check on all of you. They said, this is what we want. There are many more young people and other businesses that can represent Pakistan. Now, I can't make WEF invite them. We need to level up our engagement at the non-government sector also. This is not the job only of governments.
I wanted to obviously thank our chief guest. It was a wonderful discussion. Obviously, I want to thank Kabir and Eubank. Mr. Perot, I'm really grateful, Senator, for your remarks on my father. He works tirelessly every year. I would like to also mention a few people. I'd like to mention the Dauds. They've also been stalwarts here at Davos. They wave the Pakistani flag along with us and have consistently do it. So thank you very much, and thank you for attending as well. Thanks to family members, my wife Kashmala, my mother, my sisters, aunt. Thanks to the entire Pathfinder group for putting this together. Look, there's a lot of doom and gloom about Pakistan. I get it. I feel it. We've experienced one of the largest worldwide global disasters that the world has ever seen, despite contributing less than 1% to the greenhouse gases.
Yeah.
We've borne the brunt of the world's avarice, and greed, and years of industrialization. So I think it is incumbent upon the world community, both public and private, to do more about Pakistan. Where I worry particularly is the schools that were destroyed. And this is coming out of COVID, where the children were already falling behind in education. And Pakistan did very well during the COVID crisis to keep kids in school. But this is really the youth of the Pakistan is the future of Pakistan. And at this point in time, to have the schools destroyed, for them not being able to go back to school, I think is really now the world's responsibility as well to invest in education, invest in schools. Obviously, the Pakistan government will do what it can, but it cannot do this alone. But I feel confident that Pakistan, like it has overcome all of the challenges, the myriad challenges, both man-made and otherwise, that have been thrown at us, geopolitical, now environmental, internal, political, economic. I believe Pakistan will continue to solve those challenges.
Yes.
And as we go through this century, we'll be able to say that we are one of truly the lighthouse countries of the world.
Yeah.
So thank you again on behalf of the Pathfinder Group and Eubank for attending this. Thank you again.